All right, well, good afternoon. It's great to be back in Volusia County. I want to thank all the elected officials who are here today, Senator Wright, Senator Hudson, Representatives Leak and Federhoff for all their hard work. And it's great to be here in this wonderful part of Daytona Beach. I remember when none of this was here when I first got elected to Congress back in 2012. And so I just think they've done a phenomenal job with this. Of course, we have Dana Young, President and CEO of Visit Florida, is also here with us. We've had a lot of great folks here locally in Volusia County representing a lot of the different businesses and particularly tourism and hospitality. We're here today because we are launching the first Visit Florida campaign to begin reviving Florida's tourism industry again. And Dana Young will give you more detail about how the campaign will look and what type of ads we'll be running. But I think that it's appropriate that we're here in Daytona Beach and Volusia County to make this announcement. Of course, when the COVID pandemic hit the United States, it had a really disastrous effect on employment, particularly in the leisure and hospitality sector. In the state of Florida, when we had between February and April, 1.2 million jobs lost. 550,000 of those jobs were in leisure and hospitality. And so these are folks who work hard. Many of the folks, the rank and file, are making, these are blue collar folks, many of them. You're talking about waiters, you're talking about hotel clerks, you're talking about folks who clean the facilities, groundskeepers, cooks, event planners, tour guides, you name it. So many people are affected by this industry. And it's important also to point out when you have something like a tourist destination and you have different people that work at the hotel or work at different parts of it, that's not the extent of how it affects the economy. The insurance, everything that goes into operations has an important effect on the local economy, and that's true in here in Daytona. But we've seen huge declines over the past 6 months, 12.5% decline year over year quarter one. But of course, we really had 2.5 months where things were clicking. Quarter two, we were down 60% year over year, and we understand the consequences of that. But we are seeing a rebound. As many of you know, we have Florida's theme parks in Central Florida have reopened. Disney was the last one to reopen at the beginning of July. That was just as the infections were at their apex here during the summer Sunbelt surge. And by the time they open, we've had steady declines in the metrics since then. And I also want to say, I think Volusia has been able to really mitigate some of the damage that's been caused in terms of how they've handled things. One of the things that I looked at very early in March when there was a lot of hysteria in the air is whether you shut every beach in Florida, and people said you had to do that. That's just so important. I did not do that. I was criticized for it, of course, but it was the right decision. And you look at what happened with Volusia. Some of the local governments throughout Florida, they bowed just because of the pressure and all the negative coverage they were getting. But it was not an evidence-based decision to do that. I think Volusia made an evidence-based decision to maintain access for their residents, which I think was helpful, but then also to be able to have folks be here and enjoy this. And so their leisure and hospitality employment is down year over year, but it's about 11.4%. That is not as much as it's down in some other parts of the state. And so I think they did it in an evidence-based way. And I think what we can say is, having people have access to your beach has not been a contributor to any type of community outbreak. And we've seen that up and down the state of Florida. And that's just because when you're outdoors in sunshine, heat, and humidity, that's a less receptive environment for transmission of this and pretty much any respiratory virus. And so they were able to do that. And now you see, they had an event here, I think it's the biggest sporting event that's happened at the Speedway since the pandemic. I mean, they had tens of thousands of people here. In this area, as well as Brevard, which also has made similar decisions, they've had they've been able to weather, the COVID, I think, in a very professional manner. So I want to say the hats off to them. But our theme parks as well have just not been the source of major outbreaks. And I think part of it is people understand what you got to do. When you have people at a theme park, if you have people here at a hotel, people are taking precautions, and that's really important, and I think that that's been a success story. So this area has mitigated some of the damage on the tourism front. I think you've seen some really positive goings with things like construction and home building. This is a great part of the state for that. I know a lot of people want to come here. And so we really believe that this campaign will help reinvigorate those jobs and contribute to these communities even more. And so why do it now? Well, I think that we showed that we were able to weather, the same basic epidemic, summer epidemic that our neighbors throughout the Sun Belt had to weather. We all had similar experiences, I think, similar timelines. Some started a little bit before us, some started a little after, but I think that we proved really across the region, that we were going to be able to have the capacity to deal with that surge in terms of hospital resources, and then we would continue, of course, our focus on protecting those who are the most vulnerable, particularly those in long-term care facilities. And so now we're in a situation where we've had declines really for almost 2 straight months in things like hospitalizations. Well, that's probably about 6-week decline in hospitalizations, but we declined now in hospitalized COVID patients by over 60% since the 3rd week of July. We're down 55% in terms of COVID positive patients that are hospitalized in the ICU. And the number of individuals who go to the emergency department with COVID-like illnesses has declined by more than 75% since the peak, the 7th of July. And so those are really strong indicators. And it's not just that it's confined to one part of the state. I mean, Miami-Dade County has seen their hospitalizations decrease by over 65% since their peak. The test positivity, which there's a whole host of problems with these tests that I can go into if you want. And so it's not a great metric. But by Miami, they were testing positive between 20 and 25% the first 2 weeks of July. Today was 5.3%. So they've had a huge reduction there. If you look at Broward County, decreased in hospitalized patients over 65% since their peak. Palm Beach, same thing. Orange, 72% decline from their peak in hospitalized patients. And so, and then obviously Volusia, they're down over 70% in terms of their hospitalized patients here. And of course, the ED visits going down across the state. So that's something that is good news. And I think that we want to continue that momentum. But we also understand that, we've got a lot of folks out there that have been hurting over these last few months. We've got a lot of people that kind of had their livelihoods taken away when our tourism industry collapsed at the end of March. And so I'm excited to be here. I think this is well thought out in terms of the approach that Visit Florida has taken. And, there's always been controversy about Visit Florida in the legislature. And quite frankly, philosophically, some of the arguments that were made by some of my friends, resonated with me just in terms of the proper role of government, whatever. But what I always thought of is, okay, yes, just normally, it is what it is. But when you have a hurricane, you have an oil spill like we had, you have something major like that, you're going to need to be able to get the word out at the appropriate time. Because with a hurricane, people see damage in Florida. It could hit one part of Florida, but people think just don't go to Florida. Same with the oil spill. Some people thought that you had that in every beach in Florida. Not necessarily true. So here is a kind of a crisis time where we've had a big decline. And so this is really going to be, I think, an invaluable tool to help show folks, that Florida's back and that we welcome folks. And so Dana, do you want to come up here and give us the details?
Yes, thank you, Governor. Absolutely. And thank you, everyone. And thank you, Governor. Thank you, legislators, for being here. We are going to show this ad in a little while. So you have to hear me talk before you get to see it. But my name is Dana Young. I am the president and CEO of Visit Florida, and it is great to be here in Daytona today to talk about something very positive. Uh, we are here to announce the launch of our in-state marketing campaign, which I will talk about in just a minute. But Governor, thank you for understanding that tourism is the foundation of our economy. You know how essential it is to generate this economic activity in our state and to get these hardworking Floridians back to work. Prior to the pandemic, Florida tourism had just capped its 10th record year of visitation. We had over 130 million visitors to our state. They generated over $91 billion in revenue for our state. For Q2 2020, the governor just mentioned, we are down 60%. Our tourism industry has just been, to put it bluntly, decimated by this crisis. We've had tremendous impacts to businesses and jobs, but the good news is that there is no doubt that Florida remains the best place to vacation in the world. So we have been monitoring at Visit Florida many data points to help us decide when the time was right to start bringing people back to the state for vacations. Our data has determined that people right now, even though many are ready to travel, they feel more comfortable traveling closer to home. And right now they're feeling more comfortable driving. So today we are announcing the launch of our exciting new marketing campaign aimed at encouraging in-state travel by Floridians. Floridians, like all of us, have tremendous pride in our state, tremendous pride in everything that Florida has to offer. And our goal at Visit Florida through this campaign is initially to harness that pride that Floridians have and then channel it toward rebuilding our economy. Florida is world-renowned for diverse experiences and different types of destinations, unlike any place else. You can pretty much find something for everybody here in Florida. There are so many parts of Florida that even I, a sixth-generation Floridian and an avid fan of the outdoors, that even I haven't seen and didn't know existed. We often hear people, as the governor mentioned, say that, travelers know about our beaches. They know our theme parks, so why do we have to spend money to advertise them? Well, I'll tell you why. First, because advertising works. If it didn't work, large, sophisticated corporations wouldn't do it. And second, and more importantly, is that Florida is more than just beaches and theme parks. We are a diverse, amazing, unique state. And our job at Visit Florida is to tell the story of the whole Florida to the entire world. So I'm going to show you an ad in just a minute, but this campaign is going to be as broad as a campaign could possibly be. We're going to have heavy digital and social media placement, billboards, a variety of TV advertising, including broadcast, addressable TV, and streaming. And the idea is to introduce Floridians to new horizons within their own state. So whether it's exploring our award-winning state parks, playing a round of golf at one of our world-class golf courses, which I'm sure the governor would like to be doing right now, tarpon fishing off the coast, which I would like to be doing right now, or relaxing on a pristine beach, Florida offers endless opportunities for a safe and memorable vacation. So in-state travel is an important first step in our long-term recovery plan. And we are going to be moving very soon into a domestic U.S. campaign at the right time to start bringing people from around the country back to Florida. One message is very clear. We have rebounded from crisis before, and we will rebound from COVID-19. We are a resilient industry. The tourism industry is so resilient, as is the state of Florida. And with the governor's leadership, we are convinced that our tourism industry will be better than before within probably a couple of years at most. So thank you, Governor, for your continued support. And with that, I want to introduce you to our new in-state ad. Yes, this is a new one.
Just step outside for an epic sunset. Play fairways that feel like faraway lands. Cast away on any old Tuesday. Enjoy being anywhere in the world
So there you go. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Dana. And I think it was pretty obvious as we got into the middle, the third week of March, there wasn't much utility in doing any Visit Florida advertising at that point. So the fact that they pulled down what they had been planning on doing, that money has rolled over, and so they're able to use that now strategically to be able to help some of these communities and to just let people know that that there's a lot of great things to do. And part of it is we focus on the individual, the jobs, the people that work at a hotel or a restaurant or a fishing guide, and it's very, very important, and even, of course, probably the primary concern, but it also is good for people. I think there's a lot of pent up demand to kind of do some stuff. I think it's been a rough patch for so many people throughout our country that to have the ability to do some of these things. And people have been active this summer, so it's not like they haven't done anything. But just remind that, hey, there's things to do. And if you look, there were parts of Florida, this part weathered it better than many. The Panhandle, I mean, they were having a record summer in many respects. Some other parts on the West Coast and like the Sarasota, Bradenton, they did a lot. So, it can be done. And even as people were doing that, you continue to see the numbers go down all through July and August. And so I think that's a good thing, and we want to keep that momentum going. So thanks. Anybody have any questions? Yeah. Question? Yes.
So with the numbers going down and new campaign, do you think anytime soon, or how soon do you think we can get the phase 3?
Oh, well, so I think that, these phases, oh, sorry. I tried to get my wife and kids before I came here, and they didn't answer. So, which is, Dad's always the odd man out, it seems, around the DeSantis household. But these, I think, we've got to just be a little bit more dynamic. I mean, some of those rigid phases were done in April when we've learned a lot since then. So we're pretty much, I mean, this part of the Florida, there's not a whole lot that folks, I think they can pretty much do whatever they need to. Now, obviously, we're going to look at some certain sectors in hospitality, particularly like restaurant and bar, about how to do that. My sense is some of these rigid capacity requirements probably aren't necessary at this point, because I think people understand how to distance, how to do different things. So we'll definitely look at that for sure. But look, I think Central Florida, from Volusia, over to the theme park area, really, and actually, if you look at the Space Coast, now that's not really tourism, although people do go for that. Look what all they did during the pandemic. I mean, they didn't miss a beat. I mean, it was really impressive. And then to see how the theme parks have come back, and even as a big operation like Disney is relaunching, to see the numbers go down, I think it just shows that you can do these things, you can put people back to work, and you can keep society strong.
Governor, you said at Universal the other day that the state would support the theme parks increasing
Yep.
capacity at this point. Any sense of when that may happen?
Well, we have no limits on that. I mean, they submitted plans to us. We approved. If they want to go more, they're free to do it. I think they made the business decision to start off very conservative, which I think was smart. But I was there when we were there. I just took my son and daughter just to see the DeLorean. My son loves the time machine on Back to the Future. I don't know why, but whenever you see it on, he really likes it. So he's got his little toy time machine. But then we wanted to show him the real thing. So we were walking out, and at that capacity, I mean, there was a lot of space. I mean, it was not like people were crowding at all. So my sense is that they can definitely do a lot more. And really, when they do these events, a lot of it is, are you going to do an indoor event where people are packed together? If you don't do that, the parks are big enough that they can really accommodate, I think, a lot of folks. So they can definitely do that if they want. It's not because the government's holding them back. They have the ability to do it. I think they just want to, and I think it was smart. As soon as they decided to close, as they closed voluntarily, they immediately started to plan, okay, what's it look like when we get back? And they put a lot of thought into it, and I think they've done a good job. But yeah, we're we're in favor of them being able to do that, and I think they can do it safely, no question. Yes, sir.
Yes, you did mention that there was funding for this been rolled over from March. And what kind of cost or investment is this promotional campaign? How much you spend?
Between now and roughly December, probably around $13 million.
Great. All right, thanks. One
I
more.
have one
Yeah.
more question. I guess there was there's reports of a memo that came out, I guess from the CDC, about vaccination distribution centers. Do you know anything about that or anything?
I don't, but the only thing I've said on vaccines, well, two things I've said on vaccines is one, I'm glad that everyone's trying to get one. I hope we get one, but I mean, it's like the flu vaccine is 50% effective. Actually, the fatality rate of people who got the flu shot in the senior population is significant relative to the rest of the population. So just people should have tempered expectations on that, because I wouldn't want people to think that, 2 more months, everyone is going to be gone. Maybe it will be, but that's typically something that, you got to plan for all these contingencies. The second thing I've said is, if there is a safe and effective vaccine, I think that the most vulnerable population should have priority. It should be the people who are 65 and older. It should be people that have serious comorbidities, and they should have the priority. And so I don't know how many that would end up being produced. I know they basically paid all these companies already so that they could just go ahead and roll with it as the trials are going. But I would really want the senior citizens and anyone with any type of underlying, particularly compromised immune systems, any type of lung damage, some of the folks who may have real severe diabetes. I mean, some of the things like diabetes and obesity, I think what they found is when it's really just uncontrolled in some of the younger folks under 50, that's when you really get into trouble. So I think it should be the at-risk population that has first dibs, but I would hope that the federal government would kind of take the lead on that. I mean, to throw it out to all the states and then have us have to do it when it's their vaccine that they're producing. Hopefully they have a plan to do it, and will really focus on those vulnerable among us.